Hey guys, I'm Twan and welcome back to my channel. So before we get started, one of the things I wanted to bring back is trying to put a cool clip at the beginning of all, or if not most, of my videos. So this is one of those times where I absolutely should not have survived in the first place, but then I went on to get a nice little streak of 3 guys here, and I was able to keep on playing. So with that out of the way, what I'd like to look at today is the Perino Model 1908. It's a brand new machine gun that was just added in the name of the SAR update, and it's Italian made, and honestly I think it's a lot of fun to use. So before we look at how this gun plays in Battlefield, let's take a look at the real steel gun. So the Perino was designed in 1901 by Giuseppe Perino, who was an Italian engineer. And this gun's design was apparently the very first Italian designed machine gun. The original design was unsuitable for field use because it weighed 60 pounds, so it could only be used in fortifications. But then a 1910 version of the weapon came out that halved the weapon's weight, bringing it down to just 33 pounds. The weapon fired at 450 rounds a minute, which is pretty standard for the other machine guns that we see from this time period, and it fired a 6.5 by 52 millimeter Carcano round. Now, what sets the Perino apart from the other machine guns that we see in Battlefield is how the rounds are fed into the gun. The gun was fed by 20-round strips, similar in fashion to the Benet Mercier, but what sets this apart is that it would have a drum on the side on which these strips would be stacked, with, in the original version, up to 5 strips stacked on top of one each other. And so, instead of having to constantly feed in a belt or reload a belt, you could just keep stacking these clips on top. And this was a pretty innovative design because the gun was water-cooled, so you could just keep stacking clips and keep firing without having to stop at all. As for the Perino's use in World War I, it was used relatively sparingly because the Italian government had classified the weapon as top secret. This was because they feared that the design would be either copied or stolen. And although the gun saw limited use in World War I, it did lay the foundation for the Beretta M34 machine gun that was used in World War II. So now that we've covered the basics of the Perino's real steel history, let's take a look at how the gun plays in Battlefield. So one of the first things that you notice right off the bat is how this gun loads. I think it has probably the coolest reloading animation of all of the LMGs. And not only does the animation look cool, it's also probably the fastest reload of all the LMGs as well. One thing I'm not a huge fan of is that the range finding sight sits right in the middle of your screen, and it's rather large when you aim down the sight, so it takes a huge chunk of your screen away. And it's hard for me to imagine that in real life this would be able to be flipped down, so I don't know why they have it up in Battlefield, especially since you don't actually aim down that sight. You aim just to the right of it, down the iron sights or the optical sights if you have the defense version. And speaking of which, there are 2 variants of this gun. One is the low weight and the other is defensive, and literally the only difference between the 2 is that the defensive has an optical sight, which actually helps a ton. One thing I also forgot to mention is there's actually 2 parts to this gun's reloading animation. So if you press reload the first time, it'll stack the clips on top, and then the second time, if you've already shot some rounds out of your bottom clip, it'll push it out and then put another one on top, so you're fully reloaded at 120 rounds. One thing I probably should have addressed a little bit sooner in the video is how you go about unlocking the Perino. And so for the low weight version, it's pretty easy to get. All you have to do is get 40 kills with the MG15 low weight, and in a round perform 10 squad resupplies. It doesn't take very long, and it's an easy way to get a really nice gun. For the defensive version, you perform 50 kills with the bar and perform 20 kills with the repeater pistol, 1912. The defensive version takes a little bit longer to unlock, but all in all, neither one of these weapon assignments are very hard to do, so this gun's relatively easy to unlock. So the final thing I'd like to address with the Perino is how to use it while you play. So if you guys have seen my LMG guide, you would know that I have 2 main strategies when using LMGs, and if you haven't seen that video, you should also go check it out. But my 2 strategies are, 1, you can rush the objective, or 2, you can set up a firing position to keep enemies pinned down. While the Perino can be used to rush objectives, I think that because of its slow rate of fire and huge ammo capacity, I think it excels if you pick a position and try to keep people pinned down. This is especially true with the defense version because with the optical sight you can reach out and get people a distance, and the huge ammo capacity, you can just keep firing non-stop, and people really aren't used to that from LMGs because a lot of the LMGs will overheat relatively quickly, while this one, it does take a little bit of time for it to overheat. And this harkens back to the real steel variant, where one of its perks was that you could just keep firing non-stop as long as someone was feeding in these strips of ammo. So overall, I'm a huge fan of this gun. I think it's a great addition to Battlefield. It adds a new kind of playstyle where you can have truly defensive positions set up or high machine gun nests, because this gun can just keep firing non-stop without any real repercussions. So I definitely see myself using this gun a lot in the near future, especially because of the defensive capabilities where you can just lay down all kinds of fire on anyone that comes to an objective. and at the same time you can support your teammates as they push forward. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. If you think I missed anything or if you have questions, make sure to comment down below and don't forget to subscribe. So with all that said, I've got some more gameplay for you here, so just enjoy that gameplay and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
We have lost objective Freddy.
Штурмовик! Берегись!
We are losing.